Hello, everyone. Anyone who has ever watched a Disney movie knows about the princesses, that group of female characters who make boys fall in love and inspire girls to want to be just like them. It was a stroke of genius by the film studios. But do you happen to know what these princesses look like in real life, outside of the cartoons? If not, we're going to reveal that secret today. We'll show you 10 Disney princesses in real life. Let's start with Snow White. You might think Snow White doesn't look realistic enough to have a real-life counterpart, but that's not quite the case. The Times Snow White Times animated film was released in 1937. When beauty standards were a bit different from today's, you only need to look at photos from that era to understand what we mean. To create the image of the beautiful Snow White princess, animators based her appearance on the dancer Marge Belcher. It was actually thanks to her that Snow White ended up with dark hair. Initially, Walt Disney insisted the character should be blonde and wouldn't hear any objections. Can you imagine a blonde Snow White? To be honest, neither can we. Even so, the great animator found a way to get his own way. He gave Marge Belcher light hair when he created the Blue Fairy for Time's Pinocchio. Now, Cinderella. Initially, the future princess was supposed to resemble the then popular actress Ingrid Bergman. But when Cinderella's creators saw her, they realized the film would be incomplete without her. By that time, she had already appeared in several movies, having started her career at age 14. Perhaps the Disney animators didn't even realize the treasure they had on their hands, as Cinderella was amazing both in the animation and in real life, which emerged in the 1950s, when modern computer animation was nothing more than a dream. However, the partnership proved unstable, and things didn't stop there for the Disney studio. Over time, her image also evolved into that of Sleeping Beauty's Aurora and Anita from Time's 101 Dalmatians. It's hard to believe, but Ariel the Little Mermaid could have been blonde. We aren't making this up. However, the animators insisted on giving this underwater girl red hair because the color would harmonize better with her green tail. It was thanks to their persistence that we know Ariel exactly as she is today. The model for the mermaid was actress Alyssa Milano, who was only 16 years old when the animated film was created. One part of Ariel's body that required the most time to animate was her head. To make her hair movement look realistic, the animators carefully studied footage of female astronauts in zero-gravity conditions. When that became too tedious, the creators hired a model to swim in a transparent tank while they copied the movement of her hair strands. Music. Charles Perrault's famous fairy tale about Time's Beauty and the Beast times has been adapted so many times that there is likely no one in the world who hasn't heard of it. It was practically impossible to avoid the massive publicity surrounding the recent film, starring Emma Watson as Belle. In the 1991 Disney animated film, the characters featured many details and distinct traits, but Belle certainly received the most attention. Her appearance was created by combining the features of several beautiful women such as Sherry Stoner. Shared her mannerisms and facial expressions with Belle, there are 3 of them, by the way, and worked closely with Disney animators, leaving a mark on the look of Ariel the Mermaid as well. Belle's appearance, however, was inspired by the beautiful Judy Garland, who was considered the queen of musicals at the time. Jasmine. Nowadays, it's common to see a lead character with a non-European look in Disney films, but in 1992, creating Jasmine was a rather risky move. The 5 princesses who had appeared on screen up to that point had fair skin and, shall we say, a very conventional little princess look. You know what we're talking about: magnificent dresses, animal friends, and a handsome prince thrown in for good measure. It's no wonder that Jasmine, who was so different from the others, quickly became a favorite among children and a role model. After all, who wouldn't want a tiger to use against their enemies? Oops, sorry, we got a little sidetracked there. But this Arabian princess didn't just have a different attitude. The animator responsible for creating Jasmine was named Mark Henn. While visiting Disneyland, he noticed a young visitor with very long, thick black hair. It seems that hair was what inspired the animator. Just look at Jasmine's hair. We don't know how. Her neck doesn't hurt. But not everything about her look was unusual. According to Henn himself, the princess's face wasn't based on a famous actress, as is usually the case, but rather on a photograph of his own sister. Still, it was impossible not to draw some inspiration from Hollywood celebrities. So another model for Jasmine was actress Jennifer Connelly. Shortly after the success of Time's Aladdin, Disney created another princess with a non-European look, but this time, she was a Native American. It was only after many years that Disney created another North American princess, Tiana, from the movie Time's The Princess and the Frog Times. But today, we won't be talking about her. Instead, we'll discuss the daughter of an indigenous leader. You may have heard that the story of Pocahontas is based on real events from the early 17th century. Well, if you had any doubts and thought it was all a lie, then we need to tell you that you were mistaken about Pocahontas. She really existed. Of course, the studio made some changes to her story, such as adding talking trees and funny raccoons, but that only improved the animated film. Beyond serving as a historical model, the image of the indigenous princess was also based on the appearance of actress Irene Bedard. Although Irene was born in Alaska and is one of the few famous actresses of Inuit descent, most of her roles were as indigenous women. Yet, it wasn't just her appearance that was used for Pocahontas. Irene also provided the princess's voice in the original English version, a rare occurrence in animation where the same actor lends both their appearance and their voice to a character. Tinkerbell. While we know that technically Tinkerbell isn't a Disney princess, she's no less worthy than the others, just because she doesn't belong to the Beautiful Curves Club. We think this fairy deserves a spot on this list just as much as the other princesses. The animated film about Peter Pan's adventures was released back in 1953, so it's no wonder many people saw similarities between Tinkerbell and Irene Bedard: blonde hair, a delicate face, long eyelashes. However, the animator himself admitted that the model used to create the fairy was another actress named Margaret Carey. It wasn't because the studio disliked Bedard. At the time the film was made, she was still virtually unknown. Incidentally, that same Margaret Carey posed as a mermaid, though she doesn't look like Tinkerbell. Princess Aurora. There is likely no one who, after seeing the movie Time's Maleficent, didn't recall the old Disney cartoon about the princess asleep in an enchanted castle. It is practically impossible to forget Time's Sleeping Beauty, because this animated film can be considered a true Disney classic. Believe it or not, she hasn't cut her hair since she was 14. She says she doesn't plan on visiting a hair salon anytime soon. Her goal is for her hair to reach the floor. And then who knows, maybe she'll adopt a pet chameleon and go watch the Flying Lanterns. Do you enjoy fun and crazy experiments? If the answer is yes, you need to check out this channel. There, you'll find plenty of useful tips and cool tutorials that definitely won't leave you indifferent. Subscribe and learn tricks too. Surprise your friends. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video on social media, and we'll be back as soon as possible.